Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will not be joining us for this episode. He is very busy today. Just a heads up, we might be transitioning to one episode a week for the time being until probably rookie camp or heading into training camp, just to give you guys a heads up. But thank you for joining the Burgundy Zone to this episode of the Blue Collars. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. Mr. Hall, how are you doing on this beautiful Sunday, sir?
Beautiful. It's like all cloudy and rainy out. This day's whack.
I remember I called you beautiful the last episode. I thought you'd get that.
Yeah,
I thought you'd get that joke.
I get it. It did go over my head.
It did. And a funny thing is, I was on with AWOD with 910 and the Fan on Thursday afternoon, and I was talking about that VR software that Jyaden Daniels had at LSU by Cognalize. And the company Cognalize, a German-based company that presented their new software to LSU. Jyaden Daniels was able to get his hands on it in 2023. They were developed in 2019, the company themselves. Well, it looks like the Commanders have actually gone on and actually bought that VR software for the Commanders. So not only for Jyaden Daniels, but their quarterbacks as well. So I want to kind of talk to you about that. Your reaction to that, is that something you like the news of?
Yeah, I love the news. I remember whenever you brought it up, it was a couple months back, you talked about that and how that really helped him grow as a quarterback. And obviously you can see that on the field. And obviously you saw from his progression throughout his career, but he really blossomed once he started using that VR stuff. And it just shows that just another one of those night and day type of scenarios and transitions from the last ownership group and this new regime and new ownership group where, let's be honest, Dan Snyder would have never brought some VR system, and he would have put the private jet out. He would have put the red carpet out. He would have put all the whistles and bells out to prop up Jayden Daniels as the savior, where this group is like, hey, just keep your head down, come to work. We're going to put the best support around you, and we're going to do what we need to do and put the controllable stuff that we can control around you, which is helping him, which is that VR system. And I'm just excited that he's going to be using it this year, and hopefully it helps him to keep progressing as a quarterback. And hopefully it, like I said, helps him keep progressing as a quarterback.
Yeah, because when you look at his stats at Arizona State, the touchdown to interception ratio was not what it was at LSU. And we can talk all day about, teammates, this and that, Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors. I get that wholeheartedly. But I think the proof is in the pudding in this sense that at Arizona State, he did not have a 10-to-1 interception to touchdown ratio, where LSU last season, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Even his first year at LSU, he wasn't doing all that.
Right, and it's absolutely amazing to see, because not only did he have the throwing touchdowns, but the running as well. And the running is what really helped Jyaden, because he knew what the defense was in based on what he had seen so many times. So when he saw the coverage, he knew where to go with the football and running it, being able to get upfield, knowing that those defenders most likely aren't going to be there. I think the most fascinating part about this VR software is the fact that they can actually speed players up. And it's not like Madden VR. I don't want people to go out thinking that. They worked very hard with their particular software, Cognalize did, in being able to make them biomechanized. So basically made them more human. Made so their movements are actually human-like, less like Madden, right? So I think a lot of people are thinking
it started as a flight simulator, I'm thinking, and they kind of morphed it into like a quarterback football thing.
Exactly. Thank you very much. That's exactly right. And like you talked about, would Snyder have done something like this? He probably would have, but maybe he would have gotten like the Nintendo 64 version of it. You know what I'm saying?
The Oculus version.
Right. And like the funny thing about this is not only is Jyaden able to continue using this software, but the quarterbacks in the room as well. I think Marcus Mariota and how much time that he's had, obviously he's seen a lot of snaps himself, but he can get better. And along with Sam Hartman, Jake Fromm, and others, they can obviously use it and I would like to be able to see Cognalize use this not only for the quarterback position, but others. I think people like Jamin Davis could have really benefited from something like this, because when you watch Jamin on the football field, sometimes Jamin seems like he was thinking too much. He wasn't reacting. It wasn't instinctual. It was more so of what's going on. Am I doing the right thing? And you've been in that sort of situation before where you're just thinking too much and you can't really react the way you want to. And I think that it'd be really cool to be able to use this for everybody on the football field. Obviously, there's a long way to go. It takes a lot of time to develop that software to be able to do that in that breath. But it's something I'm very interested in. I'm very happy that Josh Harris and company made the right decision and they went and got this software. Everyone can poo-poo it and say they've had this technology before, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I mean, I understand that argument. But the end all be all sitting here is they're investing into making their quarterback room better. And that's all that matters in this situation. Getting 200 to 300 extra snaps a week for Jyaden Daniels is amazing. Hearing that Jyaden Daniels, after the selection on the private jet, as he's traveling back to California, is sitting on the plane doing checks, simulating doing checks at line of scrimmage based on the playbook that Washington had give him just a moment ago. And so it's just showing you that this isn't a guy who's kind of pissed off about the situation. He's looking at it as, I'm ready to go. And it's only a matter of time, right? And that's the kind of thing that you want looking forward. Now, that being said, I did want to get your question. I want to get your opinion on this. I've heard people like AJ St. Wall from Twitter say, like, question if Washington did enough to supply Jyaden Daniels with enough weapons going into his rookie year. I want to get your opinion on that.
It's good. Yeah, I saw that too, and I was looking at some of the responses, some of the replies. It depends on how you. Again, it kind of goes back to the one of the questions I think the Colonel asked on Thursday, or it might have been someone else, but about the weapons, and I basically my answer was if like from the outside looking in, like yes, as a fan of the team, you're like, hey, another wide receiver, or yeah, another wide receiver would have been like a great addition to this team, or maybe making a trade for Brandon Ayuk, or I know Cortland Sutton was the name that was talked about on the trade market, and everyone's been talking about like one of those taller, big body receivers. Well, there's a guy like Cortland Sutton, but I just think that, like I said, from the outside looking in as a fan, you think like, yes, the more weapons, the more merrier for Jyaden Daniels, the better chance he has to succeed, and obviously, you want to do whatever you can to support your rookie quarterback and put as many weapons around him as possible. But I just think that we're doing and I get it. It's a what have you done for me lately league, so I definitely get that. But I think that the way we're looking at Jahan Dotson is not the same way that they're looking at Jahan Dotson. I think they're looking at Jahan Dotson like, okay, even if he's not on that track that we thought he was going to be on his rookie year, he's definitely not what he was in his second year. Maybe he's somewhere in between that, which is still a good, solid second receiver in the NFL alongside Terry McLaurin, who, like we've always talked about, 4 or 5 straight yards of over 1,000 yards. So obviously we know what he represents on the football field. So I just think that, and then they draft a guy like Ben Sinnott, who uh, Adam Peters didn't want to put the pressure on him, but said he reminds him of Kittle, kind of that use chick mix. And then a lot of people, I heard an interview where Sinnott was saying that he studied a lot of Sam Laporta's game because they have the same kind of body type, and they have the same kind of like play style. And obviously, Lance Newmark comes from Detroit and probably had a good voice in hand in picking a guy like Ben Sinnott. So you put a guy like him in there. If Zach Ertz can stay healthy, obviously he's getting up there in age, but he can cover that space in the middle of the field and be a good safety valve for a young quarterback. So and then at the end of the day, you might need another weapon, but you got the weapons of Jyaden Daniels' legs, who he can break outside the pocket, create outside the pocket. So that can be like another weapon per se. But again, I've been talking about more weapons around him, and I do think that if they would have added a receiver, I'd have been happy with it. But at the same time, like I said, I do think that Jahan's going to have a bounce back year. I think that Sinnott will be a contributor. I think if Ertz can stay healthy, he'll be a contributor. And at the end of the day, who knows we still got the June first cuts, training camp, all that stuff. They can still sign the guy who gets traded, released or cut or whatever. So as of right now, I'm going to trust that they think that he has enough weapons, and it's more about we're going to scheme guys open and we're going to scheme open the offense and we're going to scheme up guys as opposed to, hey, we have the best athletes, we have the most weapons. Because at the end of the day, weapons without a scheme and really knowing what they're doing and playing like fast and like you said, knowing what you're doing on the football field doesn't really amount to anything unless you have the coaches that are scheming you up, getting you open. So hopefully the weapons that they have right now are going to be enough, and we'll see going forward.
Yeah, you make a great point because, I mean, look at Washington last year. They had weapons, right? And they had Sam Howell, right? And they had to work really hard to be able to get Terry McLaurin 1,000 yards.
Literally, like
You know,
last game, couple of last plays of the season type thing.
right, and I'll add this in there. Scouted, SCOUTD, put on Twitter the other day saying that this Washington was the only team that had 5 of their top 50 scouted players on drafted this season. The only team to do that in the NFL. Last season, it was the Detroit Lions, and the one common denominator there is Lance Newmark that you brought up, the new assistant GM helping Adam Peters in this regard. And I think Lance Newmark deserves a lot of credit for that as well. I think everyone involved obviously deserves a lot of credit for it. But the whole argument of not supplying enough weapons, right? When you look at Kansas City, does Kansas City have a plethora of weapons? Yes, Travis Kelce is amazing, but it's Andy Reid who kind of really just sculpts everything, really elite, top tier in that regard. Obviously, Miami did something completely different by trading for Tyreek Hill, getting Jalen Waddle, right? But they have that running game as well. Do they have a plethora of options? Yes, they just signed Odell, or possibly just signed Odell Beckham. But in reality, did they really all that much? That's where you could kind of base the argument here. And I think the offensive line is more so is where you can make the argument. And I think that Austin Eckler is not being brought up enough here.
I forgot to bring up Eckler as well.
And I
That's a good
think
point.
Brian Robinson is not being talked about enough here. We saw what Brian Robinson can do when he's catching balls out of the backfield himself, and we know Austin Eckler over his career is not shying away or not scared to be able to catch a football and make things happen. And so, as much as we would like to say we'd like to add more, of course you'd always like to add more, but it's not like this is a bare cupboard. There's actually some good dishes in there that you can use to help.
I will also, that's great points. And to add into that, the defense playing better and being elevated by defensive coach, defensive minds, better pieces, better talent on defense, better coaching on defense, a more balanced like game like on offense, more running game, but a more balanced game as far as like not being down 14 to nothing early on in the first or second half or the first half of the game would help out because you're not dropping your quarterback so many times. You can still run the ball. You can still kind of play that clock game to kind of help the offensive out, to help the offense out, and like I said, kind of reduce the role, like the thing of, oh, the line is not what we want it to be yet. The weapons and the receivers and whatever else is not what it wants to be yet. But like I said, scheme, a good defense with that's possibly going to get turnovers, which you get turnovers and stops on third down and whatnot. That's more cracks on the offense to get the ball and more chances to score points on the board. So I just think that just overall, like I said, more weapons would have been nice, but I also think that a better defense, a running game, and scheming up and better coaching is also going to play into the whole outcome of the offense for the season.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point talking about Bobby Wagner being added to this middle linebacking core. How long have we been saying that we kind of need a more sustainable leader here, right, to be able to help this defense? Because that's the one thing that's been missing. Yes, you have Jonathan Allen, you have Deron Payne, who obviously are leaders in their own right, but they can't look behind them in these situations. They can't be that kind. It's very hard for a defensive lineman to be able to do that. Obviously, Aaron Donald is his own kind of breath, but adding Johnny Newton, John McClain there, the dude is a freak of nature himself who's going to disrupt things a heck of a whole lot. So you bring up a great point in the defense, being able to help the offense out by getting off the field and giving them more chances to win. And I'd also make the argument, the caveat in here, of Cliff Kingsbury's offense. And we've heard Pat Mahomes, we've heard Baker say before, Johnny Manziel, saying that he kind of sculpts things in order to help his quarterback. It's not like he's pushing his quarterback in like a square peg into a round hole, so to speak. He's going to bend it around. So looking at what we have here, is there a good inkling that we could say that Washington is going to be much more so of the quick passing game, hitting downfield when they can? Or are we going to be seeing a lot more of the Scott Turner against the Detroit Lions, a 7-step drop back, allowing those rushers to be able to collapse on the quarterback? I don't think that we're going to be seeing that. I think they're going to be able to script this thing out to make sure that Jayden Daniels is in the best situation possible. But that being said, it's not like they have nothing here that can help Jayden. We obviously do. And the other point you made about Ben Sinnott, yes, you're absolutely right. That big 6'4", 250-pound tight end who does operate in the middle of the field, who can operate out of the backfield, not in blocking, but also being that kind of dump-off situation for the quarterback is obviously a helpful in itself. And so I do think that Washington has done enough to be able to supply Jayden with enough weapons to be successful. that being said, the jersey numbers, real quick. I know it's kind of stupid to kind of talk about, but Jayden, I think JP had tweeted out that he went golfing with Tressway, and most likely
Yeah,
Tressway is moving on from number 5, so Jayden's got it. So what number do you think Tressway is going to pick?
man, that's a good. I was trying to look back and see what he was in college. I looked it up, but I can't even remember what
I
it
think it
was
was
now.
36.
That's what I thought. I was trying to think, is there 36 on the team?
There
Danny
was,
Johnson was 36, right?
yeah, and I don't think Danny Johnson's here anymore.
Me either. So 36 could be an option.
Yeah, he was 36 at Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So 36, maybe he just goes with the three. I don't think there's a three on the team right now that I can think of. And if it is, it's like a meh. So yeah, maybe he goes with 36, back to 36. That's what he was in college. Now that Danny Johnson, I don't think is here, like you said. So I would go with that as the first option.
Yeah, our boy Tyler Larson, who won our fantasy football team last season. Obviously, did not like it's crazy because like he had just started playing fantasy football 2 years before. It was a free league, completely free. Nobody paid a dime. I told Tyler for winning, you get a spot on here to be able to come on and talk to us as a winner. So like there was nothing to gain from it, but his number is 69. And if Tressway's about that life, I would love to see Tressway trotting out in the 69, man. I don't
Yeah,
think
that'd be
anybody would have
lit.
a problem with that, to be perfectly honest with you, man. But I just love the passion of this fan base and just talking about jersey numbers. Like, come on, man. It's just a jersey number at the end of the day. Did you see that RFK was finally demolished?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, good. I mean, it's been there forever, and not that it's bad. It's been there forever. I'm saying it's been there forever. It's not been being used forever. So it's finally good that they approved it to get demolished, and hopefully this is just one little baby crawl step closer to getting the Commanders back in the city.
It's funny. Have you ever seen a game at RFK? Because it's different for us. I'm 33. I did not go see Washington when they
Yeah,
played
I
at
went to a
RFK.
Nationals game.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw a Nationals game when the first season, like when they came back to DC and they played in the and played in RFK. I was it wasn't opening day, but it was maybe like second or third game of the season, something like that. We were like second or third home game, whatever it was. So yeah, I mean that was literally my one and only time ever being in there, and even then, like I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of a dump. So I was like, yeah, that's why when people like complain about FedEx. I'm like, I mean, I've been in worse. So, but yeah,
You're absolutely right. My first time going to see a game was a DC United game. I think it was my
I forgot they
mom.
played there back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I went there, saw them played at RFK way back when I was a kid. I'll never forget getting off at the Metro there, at the Armory, and getting out and hearing all the music. I still remember. I still have that memory of walking up to RFK, hearing that music going on. My dad blasting it, absolutely loving it. Also, I did go see the Nationals there back when Alfonso Soriano was on the team. You remember
Yeah.
that? Yeah, I loved Alfonso, man, and we went because I played
Talk
baseball
about a
at that
throwback
time.
name.
Yeah, for Clarksburg, and they had given us tickets to go down, and so we were actually in the box seats for it. They were playing the Mets. The Mets won on a 1-0 based on one home run to right field, a lefty, and I'll never forget that day. But that was a good time. I've always enjoyed RFK. Hopefully, the new stadium does start there and get built there. I know it's going to take a long time, but we said for a while this is the only option, man. It truly, honestly is. And now we are joined by our guest for this episode, which you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, you probably already know who this is. This is somebody who is very prevalent, very popular on the sphere and around the community, so to speak. This is our guy, Mr. Juan Gotti from Juan Gotti Talking Sports. How you doing, brother? Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Sunday. Oh, your mic's off right now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you now. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, guys. I appreciate y'all for having me on. Thank you.
You already know.
Shit, you already know, dude. So how are you feeling today? How are you feeling about the state of the Commanders in their draft class? I know everyone likes to give grades, but let's do it in terms of happiness.
I mean, for me personally, you know what I'm saying? I'm a part of the younger part of the fan base. I'm only 20 years old. I'll be 21 in like 2 months. So you guys can just picture my whole entire fandom has just been nothing but losing. I mean, you can throw in that 2012, that 2015 season. You can count that 2020 season if you want to. But for the most part, under Dan Snyder, it's been nothing but trash. So this past year, I mean, I was super excited for last year's draft class and last year's season. That I did not even think that was going to happen. So when we finally just wiped it clean, got Dan Quinn up in here, Adam Peters, I was excited, and they hit absolute grand slam on this year's draft from every pick. I mean, obviously we still have to wait and see what happens with these players, but I mean, obviously with getting the quarterback and then addressing some needs that Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio just ignored, i.e. the slot position. We finally got that together. And then getting the tight end and Ben Sinnott, who, I love Jyaden Daniels, I love that pick, but Ben Sinnott is my absolute favorite pick. And then you look at the back end with Jordan McGee and stuff like that. The whole draft class was really good for me. So I'm happy.
My man Juan, you just got ahead of me because I had some fan questions for our last show submitted that I skipped over, and I screwed up on that behalf, and you kind of got into it. And this one was from Big Tony Shiver. So Hall, after Juan goes, you can answer this. Tony asks Juan, who was your favorite day 3 pick? For me, it's McGee. He plays with violence and has a high motor. Will be good to have the likes of him as depth at linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, you took it right from me, honestly. Jordan McGee was my pick too. I mean, I see a lot of people comparing him to maybe a Dre Greenlaw. I mean, obviously, I don't want to set that standard too high because Dre Greenlaw is an absolute dog. But I mean, if we can get 50% of that here, that would be really good from the lack of our depth last year with, and then years past with Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio. Our linebacking core was absolute trash. Now we got a loaded full of linebackers that is led by a Hall of Famer and Bobby Wagner. And it's still crazy for me. I don't know how you guys feel to even say that we have Bobby Wagner on our team. And I understand he's probably past his heyday, but to just have a room with him leading the pack, it's outstanding. So Jordan McGee for me also.
No, you're absolutely right about that. We were just talking about Bobby Wagner because the argument was, has Washington done enough to supplement Jyaden Daniels with having enough weapons to be successful? And Hall brought up is having a better defense this time come around this year is actually a really good weapon and being able to help Jyaden and getting Bobby Wagner, obviously, and that leadership that he brings because he has lost a little bit of a step. I'm 33, man. I get it, dude. I'm not the same dude I was when I'm 21 like you, Juan. But I understand that. But the mind is honestly more plentiful, more productive for anybody, honestly, on the football field, just in terms of leadership and putting guys in position, giving them confidence, and knowing how to be comfortable when not. I think that's a great one by you. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I was gonna say McGee. Well, it's like really one A and one B. You can flip flop them either way, but I love McGee. But I also loved, I want to say, is the dude from Washington, Dominic Hampton.
Yeah.
I think the safety. If you just look at Dan Quinn over the years and the type of defensive backs that he's coached, going back to Seattle with Cam Chancellor and why am I blanking on the other dude's safety's name right now?
Earl Thomas?
It was Cam, not Earl. Oh, not Earl Thomas as well. But yeah, I was thinking about Cam Chancellor, but and Earl Thomas, like Legion of Boom, all those guys. But and then you go to Dallas and he's coaching Javon Curse and what's the dude from last year that had all the interceptions?
Deron Bland.
Deron Bland, who they're kind of that taller, kind of linkier, kind of like defensive back, and he's a guy that can come down in the box and play safety as well. He's like a thumper, and so I definitely think that if he can get coached up, maybe he can turn into like a player down the road that can maybe be that kind of hybrid type of linebacker safety that's kind of taking over the NFL right now.
Yeah, and I'll say Javonte Jean-Baptiste because obviously you guys took all the possible ones that we could possibly pick here. But him being 6'5", 239 pounds, coming from Notre Dame, you know what to expect out of a Notre Dame player, where they're going to be hard-nosed, they're going to be tested, they're going to be working hard, they're not going to be a knucklehead. And adding more spaghetti noodles to the D-end room is nothing but awesome. Because, everyone and their mother were complaining about trading away Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Well, at this point, they've added a bunch of dudes, and they can have a rotation all the time. And these are going to be healthy guys to come in and be productive. We talked to Ian Cummings on Thursday. He talked about the speed, the power for Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and it's something that Dan Quinn really covets. And so I think adding somebody like him in the 7th round, knowing the background from Notre Dame, I think that's an awesome, awesome selection for Washington. Just adding production and value in every round of this draft. I don't think this is the sort of level of like Shaka Toney and Will Bradley King type of thing where you can just make the selection and kind of throw it away and forget about it. I think this more so has a plan behind it. Now, Juan, the next question we have is from Chris Comerton that I also forgot about last week. He asked, we drafted a lot of players with high RAS scores. Do you think Eugene Shen uses analytics might have impacted or changed Peter's draft philosophy in a negative or good way? Sometimes athleticism doesn't always translate to good football players.
I honestly, that's a great question, to be honest with you.
It is.
But I definitely think it has impacted Adam Peters' draft. We have a unit that now works all together. You know, they rely on each other. They hired certain people in certain positions for exact things like the draft, so they can all be on one accord. This isn't a previous regime where one person wants one per player, another person wants this player. I mean, do you guys remember when Martin Mayhew was talking about Kenyon Green and Ron Rivera was all set on Emmanuel Forbes, I believe it was, or John? I don't know what draft that was, but the years passed. They were
last year.
all over the place. Last year. They were all over the place. So now we have guys in certain positions that they're all together, and that's why I honestly think, what's his name again? I forgot his name. The guy
Eugene Shen.
Eugene Shin. Yep, I believe that's why he's here for certain things like that to just help out Adam Peters, and I think it impacted you in a positive way, honestly.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I'm not sure if Eugene Chen, Chris, has changed or warped Adam Peters' draft philosophy. I think Adam Peters is smart enough to know that obviously you always want new information to kind of help and to be able to build and grow as an evaluator, but you also don't want to take something to completely rip down what you all know, right? And that's when you kind of get into those sticky situations. I think it does impact it in a good way because the one thing you can say is in the back end of the draft, it's the complete opposite of what Ron Rivera was doing. Ron Rivera was taking talent high that wasn't very productive. It was high in athleticism, but then was going the complete opposite direction the back end of the draft. And that's the opposite of what Adam Peters was doing here. A bunch of RAS scores in the back end of the draft, like Jordan McGee and others, very high RAS scores. Even Bo Bauer, the white linebacker from Notre Dame, they got very high RAS score. I think he had a 9.61 listed. This is a smart selection because you're adding athletes to a room that has supplemented leaders, concrete leaders, with coaches who have been there, done that, and honestly demand respect, not just from a verbal way, but just as soon as they step in the room, that's somebody you have to respect and listen to. And adding on high athleticism, high motor type of player with that is just a recipe for success for everybody involved. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I think it was like I do think that Eugene Shin did not really influence his thinking on drafting and whatnot, but I think it just like he's always talked about, like it just added more information to the process, like the analytics, added more data, added more like I said, more thinking and just more decision making into the process. But I really think it comes down to Bob Myers, who's the former GM of the Golden State Warriors, who comes from that basketball background where if you look at football, it's kind of shifting to not like positionless football, but it's more of like we're going to draft the best athlete at this position, and we're going to coach him up and scheme him up and let him use his athleticism to do what he does best, whatever position may be. So I do think that just the NFL overall is kind of shifting to that positionless kind of put the best athletes at each position on the field and let them use their athleticism to beat the man in front of them. But I do think that the RAS score did kind of factor in, but I think, like you said, it was more of these are highly athletic guys that are also played a lot of college football, have a lot of college football experience, have a lot of playing experience, and should easily translate a little bit faster into the NFL because they've seen a lot more stuff in the college level. So I think it's just all one big thing grouped into one, but I would put a little bit more of the Bob Myers influence on positionless like basketball and all that stuff, influencing it more than Eugene Shen kind of like talking to Adam Peters like, hey, this guy's RAS score and the analytics go with this guy, blah, 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 as opposed to Adam Peters seems like a guy that looks at the tape and then uses the kind of the analytics and the RAS score and whatnot to kind of back up what he's seeing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I would argue that Eugene Shin probably had more influence on Chase Young and Montez Sweat leaving, more so than the draft did, and just specifically talking about what you would be getting in return. And that was the smartest thing to do for Washington at the time, was getting rid of those guys. And we've seen what they've done at the end and how that really helped us, because that helped us be able to get a Ben Sinnott and others, be able to help Jyaden Daniels in this offense out. Now, the next question we have, Juan, from Deluxe, do you think the team will expand on the use of the VR software to the other side of the ball, to the quarterback, to the defense?
Yeah, so I actually just found that out like yesterday. I actually had made a video on it where Jayden Daniels credited his success last year at LSU to the VR thing. And I kind of got a little bit upset with it, like, dang, man, we could have kept that under wraps for when we actually got successful with it. Cause now if it's out there, I'm pretty sure at some point other teams were gonna start using it. But I would have liked to wait for us to be successful with it until, what I'm saying, and then let other people get it. But yeah, I definitely do think it is going to impact all phases of the team because they plan on, incorporating that. And I think once they see how it helps Jayden Daniels, the defense will try to figure out, okay, what is our ways that we can try to flip it and use it for our advantage when we're going against opposing offenses. Technology is a great thing, and I definitely think you'll see that trending upwards in not only NFL but sports at some point. So I definitely think it'll impact the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree with you. One thing here, Deluxe, is the software has to be has to be changed in order to be able to flip it to the other side of the ball. There's a lot that goes into it. Obviously, it takes a lot of time, and right now that's only for the quarterbacks. I would love to be able to use that. We talked about it earlier with Jamin Davis. He could have really used that when he came into the league. Didn't have that many snaps. Jayden was getting 200 to 300 extra snaps a week just in this VR training to help his mind. And it's the reason that Cognalyze did this was so to help the brain of the quarterbacks, not more so of the physical aspect, just purely the brain, being able to get your instincts, get your timing in rhythm and ready to go. And on top of that, you can actually speed up the difficulty in the players that you're going against. So you can make it even harder than it truly is. And you can see the touchdown interception ratio, 40-4. You can see that working in real time. And like you said, Juan, you would love to be able to keep it under wraps so other teams don't know about it. We're trendsetters now. As Washington fans, we're not used to that. Usually we're the ones riding on the back of the tiger. Not this time. We are the tiger in this breath, and hopefully it does prove to be fruitful, and I definitely think it will. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, like you said, I think that if the creators of the software and all that can engineer it to make it for other positions and other, like for the defensive side of the ball or middle linebacker, safety, cornerback, whatever it may be, then it would be on them to kind of manufacture that. But at the end of the day, Josh Harris, when he took over the team, he said multiple times that it's his job to pretty much like get the edges and help not really like help the team on the field, but the off the field stuff as far as like creating edges and gaining edges on your opponents in any way possible. Well, that kind of factors into the Josh Harris category of, hey, what is it called? Cognize?
Cognalyze is the company.
Cognize, yeah. Yeah, Cognize, hey, I have the money to fund your project to maybe manufacture this software for X position or Y position. So, hey, can you do this for me and see how it goes? So I do think that eventually down the road, I do think that it's going to be like not just like a Washington Commanders thing. It'll probably be an NFL like wide thing.
Yep, and we're trendsetters, baby. And I will say this. I think Josh Harris should sell the 76ers and that way use that money to be able to buy Cognalyze so he could put even more into it, be able to dictate what he needs to do. Because honestly, Washington is all that matters. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to care about what's happening up north. I'm not even watching the playoffs right now.
You could have the monopoly on it and be like, oh, no, this is my company. I don't want the rest of the NFL teams
exactly.
to use it.
Like, I'm not selling to y'all. You're good. You're good. I'm good with that. I'm straight. Now, the next question, Juan, is from Deluxe as well, and this is a really good one. What position coach do you think is the most excited to get to work with their new rookie?
I'm going to say Bobby Johnson. And the reason why I'm going to go with that guy is because I like a dominant offensive line. And I'm really interested to see how we use our new rookie. I will say Coleman, right? Make sure I'm saying it right.
Brandon Coleman, yes, sir.
Because a lot has been made about him. Some people think he's not a tackle. Some people think he is a smaller or he's not really good in space. This is at least what I'm hearing from the analysts that was on the draft show. I forget. I think I was watching the ESPN broadcast, and they were talking about how he may not be translated well to tackle at the next level. But we need a left tackle. To me, I love Cornelius Lucas, but I like my Luke coming off the bench. So I'm interested to see if this guy could maybe at some point grow to potentially being a left tackle. I saw that the Eagles got Mekhi Becton. I'm just catching up on everything, so I didn't even know that the Jets didn't re-sign him. And I was like, hey, why didn't we stick our nose in that? I don't know if it was anything going on with that, but left tackles for me is a little bit worrisome. So I'm interested to see how Bobby Johnson works with him specifically, and
I'm
see if
with
he
it.
can come there. Yeah.
I'm with it. I've been talking about Ken Norton and Jordan McGee for the past week or so. We heard Adam Peters on the call to Jordan McGee when he made this selection, telling him Ken Norton's really excited to work with you, man. And hearing Ken Norton say that, it's pretty intense. But honestly, I did a film breakdown on Johnny McClain Newton on Friday. And one of the things that really caught my eye on NFL.com was they said that he led the nation with 4 blocked kicks. And so I will say that Larry Izzo is probably the special teams coordinator is probably ecstatic to be able to get Newton on those field goal teams, on the punt teams, to be able to try to block some kicks and then Johnny actually replied and said it was 5 block kicks this season, which is just insane stat to have. So I'll say Larry Izzo, not only because of Johnny Newton, but also Dominique Hampton. We talked about his frame and his body style being kind of maybe a special teams ace. Also, I heard Bo Bauer from Notre Dame has been talked about from the Notre Dame coaches as a special team huge contributor and helper on that side. So I think anybody here, it's probably Larry Izzo is getting ready to help special teams be able to become elite at that. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, so I had to look his name up because I knew it wasn't going to be Joe Witt Jr. kind of coaching the DB. So it's Tom Donatel is the DB's coach, and I think that
Donatello.
he's gonna be psyched to coach up Mikey Samerstill, and just kind of by default Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. just coming from that defensive backs coaching background and whatnot throughout their careers. But I do think that Tom Donatel is going to have a ball coach at Mikey Samerstill. He's just been regarded as such like an alpha, top of the tier leader. Has no problem not only taking criticism from other leaders, but other players, coaches, and also giving it out to other leaders and coaches, and not coaches really, but coaches or players and people around him, leaders and whatnot. So I just think that he's going to be a big contributor for this team, not only this year, but for the next couple of years going forward. And yeah, I think that Coach Tom Donatel, is going to have a ball coaching up Mikey Samerstill.
I do think that Joe Witt and Dan Quinn are also licking their chops at the opportunity as well. Not to discount that or whatever. I'm sure you're 100% right. Just saying those guys being defensively, they know what they're getting in that captain. The next question that we have is from the Colonel, our biggest fan of this show. Juan, he says, I just read an article that Luke McCaffrey is considered the draft gem of the NFC East and that he will start in the slot on day 1. I don't understand how someone projected to go in the 4th or 5th round can be considered such a gem. Where was all this scouting analysis and judgment pre-draft? And he heard this on lastwordonsports.com.
Well, I want to first start by saying this. He went to Rice. I mean, that's not like a go-to school. At least I'm not sure if it is. When you think of, athletes coming out, you don't automatically think of Rice. So that's why he's probably a late round gem that people are excited about. And it also helps when your last name is McCaffrey. Also, like, let's just throw that in there. But the dude is an absolute beast. A lot of people believe that he could be Washington's Poole Nakua, where he just came out of nowhere. Like prior, nobody know who he was. He came on the scene and absolutely tearing it up. And a lot of people think that can be Luke McCaffrey. But again, it goes to saying, like, it doesn't matter where you're drafted. You can be a 1st round pick, 2nd round pick, 3rd round pick, or undrafted. It doesn't matter. When you get that shot, you got to take full advantage of it. And a lot of people believe Luke McCaffrey, when given that shot, is going to take advantage of it. And you look at his tape. He's just an absolute dog in the sense of, like, he may not be the fastest, strongest, but he's going to give you all you got. And who is our best wide receiver on this team? Terry McLaurin. That's a prime example, jersey in the back, I see it, of a guy that doesn't have it all, but, giving it your all and just being that absolute dog for us on the field is going to sometimes be better than just, the most athletic or the most, talented guy, because they may not feel like they have to try as hard. Luke McCaffrey definitely, to me, looks like he has a chip on his shoulder because he knows he's going to be under. I'm pretty sure he's already getting tired of it, but he's going to get more tired of it that he's going to be in the shadow of his brother, and he wants to probably pave out his own way. So that's just going to carry him even more into this opportunity that he's getting. So again, don't worry about where a player is drafted. You know what I'm saying? If they think he's going to be really good, it has to be a reason for that.
Yeah, and honestly, Colonel, you've listened to the show long enough. So I've kind of talked about this before. It's not really about the player, it's more so about the situation that they're walking into. And with Washington having Jayden Daniels at quarterback, wanting to invest and being able to help him out so he is able to be successful as soon as possible and for the long term. I think adding Luke McCaffrey here in a situation where he doesn't need to be the wide receiver one. He doesn't need to be the wide receiver two. I do think that Luke McCaffrey, if he had gone to Miami with the Dolphins, I think that would have been considered the same exact thing for the AFC East. So for this situation, I think it's a really good situation for Washington. So why is that analysis not there pre-combine? Because they didn't know where he was going. They're just looking out and scatting at what he does well, right? And that sort of sense. Knowing that Adam Peters from San Francisco had Christian McCaffrey, adding him in here into the mix, saying you can operate in the middle of the field, and where that kind of people have speculated that Jayden is not as productive in throwing in the middle of the field as other quarterbacks. Having a Luke McCaffrey there obviously helps out a lot. Being 6'2", 215 pounds can help out a quarterback in that regard. So I think it's not about the player. It's much more so about the selection and the situation that they're walking into. Hall?
Yeah. To that point of the situation, like if you look at Jayden Daniels, like some people say he throws that slot fade, like one of the best slot fades
Mm-hmm.
that in the business type right now or in the last couple of years. Luke McCaffrey is a guy that primarily works in the slot. I think he had a 60% contested catch rate, like which is second right behind Roma Dunze.
Love that.
So coming out of the slot, what better than who to throw it to? Who a guy has 60% contested catch rate and runs the slot fade pretty damn well, and is 6'2", and you know he's going to go up there and get it. And as far as like why he wasn't scouted like that and really talked about like that, like I said, he primarily is looked at as a slot receiver, and slot receivers are not really talked about as like those first or second round picks or those top 10 like wide receiver type guys. It's normally like the X's or the Z's that get all the attention, and the slot guys are the ones that go in like the third, the fourth, fifth, like later rounds because they're
Mm-hmm.
more of the twitchy, smaller, can only work in the middle of the field and only run like certain routes type of guys. So they're not really talked about and like really praised as like, oh, he's the fourth ranked receiver or the fifth ranked receiver, So that's why. And then at the end of the day, he's only been playing receiver for 1 year. He's coming from a school like Rice, who, I mean, let's be honest, Rice doesn't really get talked about as like one of those like, it's not a Power Five school. It's not really talked about as like NFL Network's not talking about like Rice University, da 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 da. So
Only for baseball.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Football wise, like
Right.
so. I just think that he's a guy that is just getting into the position, and like Adam Peters said, they see all the room in the world for him to grow and the potential, and he hasn't really even hit his ceiling anywhere close to it yet. So hopefully, we Cliff Kingsbury and the receiving coach can get it out of him.
Yeah, because Juan brought up a great point about the Puka Nakua, right? Because coming out, what was Puka considered one of the best wide receivers in that draft class? No, he wasn't. It was a situation that he went in, knowing that
Yep.
Cooper Kupp was going to be taking all the attention away and allowing Puka to work underneath. Having Matt Stafford, that quarterback, being able to gunsling it, throw it around the field, obviously went into the whole situation there. So it's all about the situation, in my personal opinion. And this was a really good one at that to be able to supplement and put him in here. Now, the next question from the Colonel Juan. He said, please comment on the current state of our offensive line. Personally, I think both Carson Wentz and Sam Howell could have succeeded in Washington had they not been running for their lives constantly. Do we do enough improvement to protect our new investment, Jayden Daniels?
Well, y'all already, heard a little bit about my concerns early on. So for me, I talked about it like last week. From guard, center, guard, I'm pretty comfortable. But the tackles is my worries, and that's the biggest protection for your quarterback. I definitely thought, again, Washington was gonna make an effort to get a left tackle. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Again, I'm not disappointed in any of their selections, but I'm just saying that second round when we got Jerzon Newton, which I'm excited about him, but I thought maybe that was the spot where you pick up a tackle early on. Now, granted, they did get a tackle later on, and he may ultimately turn into something. But considering the fact that we don't know, and I'm would like to be comfortable with my left tackle and my young quarterback. I don't know, man. I really can't tell you that right now. As far as like the interior goes, I'm totally fine with it. Sam Cosmi, the new center that we have. And then obviously the other guard position, I'm fine with that. It's just more of the tackles. Now, again, like I spoke to Cornelius Lucas, I like Kolu. I think he can be steady for a couple of weeks. 17 games, if he is in fact going to be the starter, I'm not really sure. And then you bring in, Andrew Wiley. A lot of people say, give him another shot. He's in a different scheme. He may be better. It's kind of hard for me too, though, because he was brought in by Eric Bieniemy, and EB knew him best because they came from the same situation. I'm definitely going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm just saying it's definitely going to be hard for me to kind of, favor Andrew Wiley again because of the disappointment that he had last year. But to answer your question, the interior I'm comfortable with, but the two tackles worry me the most.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the fan base would agree with you, Juan, especially the Colonel here. I will add this. I don't think Carson Wentz and Sam Howell really had the best situation walking into. One being Scott Turner and the way that he was calling the offense. We kind of saw that with our own eyes and what kind of happened there. And then with Eric Bieniemy with Sam Howell, everyone is still kind of scratching their heads as to why they were throwing the ball as much as they were and allowing Sam to just get bludgeoned. For me personally, my conspiracy theory mind, I was sitting there saying they're trying to pump up his value as much as possible in order to be able to move him for a draft pick because new ownership, new GM might want to take a quarterback in that top 5 selection based on how the season is going. And that's just kind of how I looked at it. And so, yes, did they kind of put him in a bad situation, the 2 quarterbacks previously? Absolutely. But I do think that this is what is going on with Cliff Kingsbury. And this is his kind of job to be able to navigate things, make it easier on Jyaden. And I think they added a lot of really good pieces here. Brian Robinson is one of the best he is the best pass protecting back that we had on the team. Even when Antonio Gibson was on the team, friends of ours, the ref the district thought that Antonio Gibson was the best pass blocker on the team. I wholeheartedly disagree. Brian Robinson literally destroys people.
Yeah, definitely B-Rob.
Yeah, and B-Rob is going to protect Jyaden Daniels if he's in there pass blocking. Then you also have Austin Eckler, who he can dump off his side in case he is pressured. He has the legs to be able to do so as well. When we did our mock draft, with the Patriots, one thing that I said was, well, if you're the Patriots, you don't have that many weapons, you would want to draft Jyaden Daniels because it's going to make everything easier for your offense because of what he can do with his legs, make things happen, right? Same thing I'm thinking about here. If you're going to have a quarterback who has to kind of maneuver himself around, make opportunities for himself, you need a quarterback like Jyaden Daniels. If this was Drake May, it'd probably be a bigger concern because he's not going to be as agile. He's not going to have as much movement as Jyaden Daniels, making it hard on the rushers to be able to get after him. Did we do enough? I honestly think we did. And I'm not going to say that Jayden's going to be successful right away. I'm not saying, and that's not because of the offensive line. I think there's a lot of things going on here that has to take part in it. But I do think Washington added Tyler Badass from Dallas. They got Tyler Allegretti to add here at left guard. They got Sam Cosmi himself at right guard. Yes, we can talk about Andrew Wiley and others, but there's things that has to happen in order to make the offensive line's job easier. And obviously last season, Eric Bieniemy was not helping in that regard. Defenses knew we were throwing the football. They knew that that's what we wanted to do, and they were pinning their ears back and going to town on us. And I think one aspect of this that was severely overlooked was the snap count. There was constantly, you saw rushers being able to jump the ball because they knew the snap count. I think that we have the people in place who are smart enough and adaptable enough to be able to move those sort of situational details around to help everybody out. And so, yes, I do think that we did enough to help our new quarterback. Anything else to add, boys?
I would just say, like, as far as the line, I definitely get the concerns about it, but I would say scheme also goes into like the play of the offensive line if they're going to be good or bad or not. And if you look at how Cliff Kingsbury's kind of schemes his offense over the years, yes, he molds it around what the quarterback does best, but it still all starts with the horizontal kind of passing game, the quick passing game, and then it turns into that vertical passing game, mixed in with the run game, kind of helping out that quick pass game as well. And if you have concerns about the tackles on your line and whatnot, what better way to kind of get around that is the quick passing game, the screen game, the horizontal passing game, which kind of makes the edges and the rushers kind of second guess, like, oh, are they going to do that quick passing game again? Now it gives you that little bit of extra half a second to get down the field a little bit more. So I do think that Cliff, hopefully, and OG Bobby Johnson will help out with the scheme and get these guys going. I think the run game will help out as well because every offensive lineman will tell you that they like run blocking 1,000 times more than they like pass blocking. So that'll help out as well. But I just say like with the line, just like just with with the team right now, the team is a work in process, but it's the correct process, and that's all that kind of matters at this moment in time. And I just say with the line, like, yes, it's a work in process, but it's the right process. And if Brandon Coleman can come in and give you average to above average left tackle play in his rookie year, I think that process is sped up times 10 right now. And you're really just looking to kind of find your right tackle of the future because, like Gotti said, the interior is pretty much solid right now. If everyone can stay healthy, they have people there, they have depth there. So I did, and then also, like I said, going back to the passing game, the best way to kind of help out your quick passing game is that interior line to hold up in the middle so the quarterback doesn't get the quick pass rush in his face. So at the end of the day, I do think it's a working process. Is it the best offensive line? No. On paper, no. But you'll never know what anything looks like until the guys get on the field and gel together. So we'll see.
Yes, and now to wrap this up, boys, let's learn a little bit about each other. Because Juan, this is the first time we're meeting you. Obviously, I didn't want to bludgeon you by telling us little bit about yourself. So tell us, like, when did you start doing your YouTube channel? Why did you start doing it, and how have you gotten started?
Yeah, again, thank you guys for having me on. So a little bit about myself. Again, I'm Juan Gotti from Juan Gotti Talking Sports. I started the channel, I would say 2019 is when I started making videos. And I always got to give everyone their flowers, especially my guy Ed Oliver was the reason I started making videos because I didn't know anybody did this. Like I didn't know people had channels talking about their favorite teams and talking about sports until I thought it was just on TV ESPN. And then I just randomly got on YouTube one day and I came across Ed Oliver's channel. And I watched him and I've always wanted to talk to him. And I was like, what's the better way to make my own? And I eventually crossed paths with Ed Oliver. So shout out to Ed. Big inspiration. And the reason I started my page, because I had a YouTube channel, but I made entertainment. I didn't talk about sports. But my passion all my life has always been to become a sports journalist and become a journalist for the Commanders. Honestly, that's always been my dream, is to become a journalist, and YouTube has helped me with that platform and potentially one day making my dream come true. But that's always been my life goal, and I fell in love with this, and it hasn't stopped since. So we're now finally going to have a team that gives us a reason to be happy and give us a reason to not always get in front of the camera sad or recapping a loss. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me. Started my channel 2019, been going ever since, and just a kid with the dream of one day becoming a sports journalist. So
That's awesome, man. To see you act on it and Ed Oliver being the inspiration, it's really cool. I hope Ed was able to give you some advice and help you out along the way. Because it's funny, because my buddies, like when we first started this podcast, like they would say, oh well, do you want to like be working for the team in that breath for the Commanders? And my first thought is no. I said them no, to be perfectly honest with you, because I don't want to be muffled, because we know what it's like working under DS. And I don't want to be put in that sort of situation. I want to be able to say what I want to say. I want to be able to call crap out when I want to be able to do it. Like the Scott McLuhan situation, which was absolutely disgusting. You want to be able to have that freedom. But obviously this day and age is completely different now, my friend. Different ball game that we're playing with here. And so last questions I have for you boys before we get out of here. Who's your favorite local reporter, Juan?
I've always said JP Finley. Was
Really?
the guy, yeah, for me, because he was like, honestly, I'll be real with you, he was the most popular one. And then as I started to get more into it, I really liked their podcast when it was like I would say when it was the original one with him and Mitch Tisler and Peter Haley, because Peter Haley was the entertainment for the podcast, honestly. So
And Rich Tandler, right? Yeah.
yeah, so I actually I started listening after him, but I
Oh,
knew
okay, okay.
of him. So, but it was just those three. So it was JP Finley, but besides him, honestly, she doesn't cover the team anymore. But it was Rihanna Walker.
Okay.
She was my go-to. I always looked for her with reports of the team. But I love them all though, honestly speaking. John Kime and stuff like that. So I love them all, but my two would probably be Rihanna Walker, JP Finley for me.
My man. That's a little different than mine. I've always been a fan of John Keim for a long time. I'm not going to say he's my favorite at this point, but I think it's by far, I think it's Sam Fortier. I think Sam Fortier goes about his business the right way, very fun, very open, very comfortable, but he also cares about his job, takes it very seriously in that breath. But he has the younger mindset of us, where he kind of understands the kind of things that go around. You don't see him being a knucklehead, yelling at fans on Twitter, being kind of trying to ruffle things up, ruffle the feathers and everything like that. I think Sam Fortier goes in with the right mindset of being subjective and looking at things from the outside, but also making things somewhat fun and comfortable for everybody. So for me personally, I don't want to show favoritism and say Logan Paulson, who you can't really say Logan, like just being a media personality, of course, but seeing where Logan was before, having him on here, always appreciated his time. Like even when he played for us, I would get made fun of my buddies because I said 2012. I said Logan Paulson was very important to this offense making the playoffs that year, and not many people will remember that because of how many first downs he did convert after losing Fred Davis early on in that season. So, but I will say Sam Fortier just because Sam is just an awesome dude, and he really does a really good job at his job. What about you, Hall? Hall, you got one? Looks like he's frozen. It's all good.
Can I add one more person in there?
Absolutely.
Now he covers the team, but his main thing isn't the whole just the Commanders. He does sports everywhere. Chad Ricardo for Fox 5. He's a guy
Okay.
that has been amazing in the whole area. I mean, he covers high school mainly is his thing, but when he covers the team, again, he talks well about the team. He goes about his business the right way, and he can relate to us again because he's a guy that keeps it real in a sense and understands where fans are coming from with their frustration and how we have been a fan of a team that hasn't gave us a reason to support, but we've always come each and every year supporting this team. But again, like you said, not to show favoritism because I kind of listen to all of them, but we do have our guys. And the Logan Paulson thing, I'm going to defend you right now. He was definitely, and this is even coming from a guy that was young, but I remember that 2012 season. He was definitely a key part of that offense and that successful year in 2012. So I got your back with that one, man.
Well, it's funny because when we interviewed Logan, he said that Kyle Shanahan was honest with him here in Washington, and he said, "Look, you're not gonna be the guy, but what we're gonna need you to do is we're gonna need you to move the chains." And when you look at Logan in that breath here in Washington, that's exactly what he did. He just got himself open, caught the football when it was thrown to him, made the blocks that he needed, and a lot of people because there's a lot of fans that have never played the game that don't understand what it's like to put on pads, to be on a team, and knowing how many small parts and details there are, and what truly is the need to be able to get points scored. And people like Logan is what you need on a football team. You need the blue collar, you need the hard hat workers. They're going to do the dirty stuff to be able to help you. They're not going to get all the praise, they're not going to get all the admiration, but they're going to do their job. They're going to do it with a smile on their face, and they're going to be happy when the team wins because that's all that matters. Hall, before we get out of here, who's your favorite local reporter?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to go with John Keim just because he's the OG. He's the one that always comes with a level-headed perspective on the team. Is never too high, never too low. Is always going to tell you like not like the national media perspective. He's always going to tell you like the local, like no, da da da. This is what it actually really is perspective. So got to go with John Keim, and then obviously you got to shout out, like you said, Sam Fortier. Not just because he always comes here all the time, but I like the work that he does. He's not scared to like mince his words and hold back whether it's good or bad for the team, as well as Nikki Javala covers the team really well. Always ask great questions to the coaches and players, and that's another person that's not scared to hide her words about the team, whether it's like good or bad,
Right.
whether she's writing it or talking about it. And then, yeah, I would say I know a lot of people hate on JP Finley, but I like JP just because I liked him when he was on Chad Dukes and like in the early days, and when I first started listening to 106 and all that, when I didn't even really know anything about like the beat reporters or podcasting and like that. I just watched the team and talked about it from like my perspective of watching it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
But he started from the bottom, kind of grinding his way to the top to be like one of the top like local guys around here. And then I like B Mitch too because obviously he's a former player, but he's another guy. Whether he's like, I don't care if I work for the team or not. If you suck and you're doing something bad or horribly, I'm gonna call you out on it and tell you about it. So I always respect and like people like that.
Yeah, I will agree with you there. B. Mitch is always honestly is the best thing on that show. He really does make it a lot better. And my favorite thing about John Keim is I call him Red Foreman, just because when he's on Twitter and he's talking to fans, that's exactly how he talks to them.
He's not scared to clap back on people too. That's the best part about John Keim.
I love it because that's human, man. That's normal. Like that.
He does it in like a funny way as well too. It's
Yeah.
not even like he's trying to like go in on you and like end your life type thing. He's just like, no, I'm gonna make a joke about it, but I'm also gonna be like, boom, drop the mic. Don't say no word. Don't say nothing else.
Just like Red Foreman. And I absolutely love it. All right, boys. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Juan, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I'm going to see you very, very soon, sir. But before we get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handle and your show, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet, sir, and would like to?
Yes, again, boys, I appreciate you for having me on. I've been watching y'all for, I would say, I think it may be going on 2 years. You know, you're searching the community, and then you guys popped up.
Appreciate that.
I think you guys were just coming on. I would say I found you guys when you just had a couple hundred, and I've been subscribed ever since.
Wow.
And watching you guys. So yeah, definitely. It's your man Juan Gotti. From Juan Gotti Talking Sports. You can find me on YouTube over there. Also Instagram and Twitter, Juan Gotti Talking Sports, and those are just my social media platforms. And I again thank you guys for having me on, allowing me to share my thoughts about the Washington Commanders.
Of course, and it's really awesome of you to admit that because not a lot of people, because a lot of people watch this show and they don't admit that they do. So it's really cool that you're able to do that because it's very manly of you to be able to at least admit that. You know what I'm saying? All right, everybody. I'll see you soon, Juan. I really do appreciate you coming on here. We're going to do this again. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And we'll see you guys again on Thursday. And watch out for any updates if we're switching to one show a week or not. We'll let you know how that goes. All right, everybody. We'll see you then. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.